Last night, we saw the Los Angeles Lakers take down the Houston Rockets in a 117-109 victory, and while Houston did rally in the third quarter from a 21-point deficit through some insane shooting from behind the arc, very poor play in the fourth quarter cost them the game, a great contrast from what we saw in the fourth quarter of Game 1. I do have to give a lot of credit to the Lakers because they came to play in Game 2. Their defensive rotations looked sharp, they fed their stars the ball, and the supporting cast showed up. However, even with this tough loss, this game does give me a lot of hope in regards to the Rockets being able to win the series, though some clear changes need to be made. So with that being said, here are my thoughts on the Houston Rockets after Game 2. The first thing that I would like to point out is that one of my biggest concerns for Houston was their paint defense this game. They gave up 54 points as opposed to just 40 in Game 1. This led the Lakers to shoot an insane 57% from the field, a recipe for losing basketball. One thing that I did notice was Houston seemed content with allowing their guys to go one-on-one against the Laker bigs and LeBron James, even if they're severely undersized. And while this is fine, and Houston does have the personnel to do this for some possessions, keyword on some, this isn't something that you can rely on for a whole game, and it's definitely not a winning formula. Both Anthony Davis and LeBron can score at will on this team if they really wanted to from the paint, and what I would like to see the Rockets do is something similar to what the Lakers do to the Rockets on the defensive end. When guarding AD in the post, the Rockets need to double team him every time and force him to be a playmaker, because in one-on-one situations, he can easily score down low, and when he gets his jumper going, he's nearly unstoppable. By making him a playmaker, this disrupts his rhythm on the offensive end and forces the Lakers to rely on their role players to get buckets, which is something what Houston wants given how inconsistent everyone aside from Bron and AD are. Think about it, Danny Green is either hot or cold on any given night, mostly cold though from what I've seen. Caruso has been struggling with his shot the whole time we've been in the bubble. Rondo, while improved, is still very inconsistent from outside, and Markieff Morris will not be as hot as he was in Game 2 every night. If I were Houston, I'd rather see these guys go off. And when guarding LeBron, I'd like to see the Rockets employ a similar strategy that the Heat used against Giannis in their series and cut off driving lanes early, before Bron gets going downhill. And while it may not be as effective as what Miami is doing, given that LeBron can actually shoot, I'd rather take that and take my chances at a long-range 3 than have a guaranteed 2 points at the rim. The next thing that I noticed from Game 2 was Houston's struggles in the fourth quarter against the Laker defense, specifically their 1-2-2 zone that they put out. Throughout the game, the Lakers played mostly a man-to-man, but on occasion switched to a 1-2-2 zone. But in the fourth quarter, especially into the last 5 minutes of the game, we saw the Lakers jump into this zone a lot, and it really disrupted Houston's offense. Why was it so effective? I would say because of Houston's style of play. Okay. Before you click off the video, I am not saying that Houston should change their style of play because it's effective against the Lakers and I know that. What I'm saying is that Houston cannot allow Harden to be double teamed, not just in the 1-2-2 zone, but in general while everyone stands out at the 3-point line, because this is what the Lakers want. They want Harden to be doubled when he's on the sidelines and turn him into a facilitator, which is fine. But by standing out at the 3-point line and not moving at all, you give the Lakers a whole lot of time to recover, given how long of a pass Harden has to make just to get the ball out of his hands to an open guy. The only passes available for him are cross-court passes to the opposite wing or a pass to the top of the key, which is easy to read and pick off. What Houston should do, especially with Westbrook in the game. And speaking of Westbrook, I'm gonna get to you later because even if you're my favorite player in the league, you are downright terrible and basically playing for the Lakers. They should have just handed you the game ball at the end of the game because you basically won the game for them. But back to what I was saying. When Harden is doubled on the sidelines, the Rockets can't just stand around and watch. The weak side corner or wing needs to cut towards the free throw line area, giving Harden another option to pass to. By doing so, it is a 2-on-1 in favor of Houston on that side of the ball, and the Lakers defender must decide whether or not they want to give up inside penetration or leave a shooter open. I said earlier that Westbrook should be the one doing this, given how effective he is at the rim and kicking it out to shooters. Speaking of Westbrook, this man needs to show up if the Rockets even want a chance to win the series. Without him, they're not gonna win, plain and simple. He's my favorite player in the league, but man is it hard to be a fan of him sometimes. I'm gonna be honest, I think that he single-handedly lost Game 2 for the Rockets. Yes, he did have 13 rebounds, which was great, but 4 of 15 from the field? 1 of 7 from 3, 1 of 3 from the free throw line, 7 turnovers, 5 fouls? Nah, that's inexcusable. You might as well have put a Laker jersey on him because that's really what it seemed like when he was on the floor. Those 7 turnovers were absolute backbreakers, accounting for nearly 41% of all of Houston's turnovers for that whole game. He was especially bad in the fourth quarter, shooting just 1 of 5 from the field, turning the ball over twice, going 0 for 3 from 3 and had 2 turnovers and just 3 points. Westbrook, listen to me. Stop settling for threes because aside from your MVP season, you have never been able to consistently hit over 31% of your threes in your career. Ever since your MVP season, your 3-point shooting numbers have consistently dropped. Please, go back to attacking the basket like you did earlier in the year, as this puts constant pressure on the defense. If you do, I can bet the Lakers play that zone defense less often, and you would make the game so much easier for Harden and the rest of your teammates. Please, attack the basket and kick it out to the open shooters like you do. You make the game so much easier for everyone when you do what you do best, so please just do it. And one more thing, although it's minor but worth noting, I want to see Harden much more aggressive in the fourth quarter, which is something that I think we'll see for the rest of the series. In Game 2, he had just 3 shot attempts. This should be at least 6 or 7, with a couple of trips to the line as well. He seemed extremely passive, which isn't surprising because of all the double teams being sent his way, but still, once he passes the ball, he needs to move off the ball, unlike what he does now, which is just stand and watch his teammates. He could either catch the Lakers sleeping on defense by moving around, or his gravity alone would force the Lakers D to focus on him a lot more, leading to less defensive attention on his teammates. Pause on Lakers D. If the Rockets can work on these things and continue shooting well from the 3-point line, I definitely believe they have more than a fair shot at taking down the Lakers this series. Let's just hope that they don't go ice cold against the Lakers like they did against the Warriors in 2018. But remember, this is just my opinion and my observations. This isn't 100% truth. So leave in the comments below what you think the series outcome is going to be. In my opinion, I think that it's going to be Rockets in 7, but that's just me. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe with post notifications on as well. We're going to be uploading every Monday and Thursday, so be on the lookout for that. I'd like to thank everyone for the support lately. We're almost at 1,300 subs. Do you think we can hit 1,500 by the end of the year? I definitely think so. So hit that sub button below. And with all that being said, remember this. In Game 2, Russell Westbrook had a plus-minus of -14. -14. Let that sink in. The Rockets lost by 8 points.